Why do I think Jasmy could hypothetically reach the price of $1 during this bull run, even though that's not financial advice? The reason is because I think that Jasmy is going to be such a big narrative during this bull run, because I think that data storage, that's on the rise. And more specifically, decentralized data storage solutions, I think that right there is going to be such a big narrative. And I think naturally, as that does gain a lot more attention, as we're beginning to see signs of that as of right now, but I think eventually, as the bull run progresses, I think that we could very well see Jasmy go along with that ride, because of course, Jasmy, I think, is one of the premier projects out there that is focused on data storage, a market that's often, not really paid attention to. Sometimes people think it's complete caca, they just ignore it. But I think sometimes they don't understand the beneficial qualities of data storage and how, let's say, decentralization could just make that a lot better. Because for instance, if you take a look at how centralized data storage as of right now is operating very well, many people would argue, okay, it doesn't really need any tweaking. But I disagree with that. Like, for instance, boats that use like sails, that worked for quite a while, right? But then now we use boats with engines and stuff like that. Also airplanes, it's just called innovation. So when I take a look at something like, for instance, decentralized data storage, I think that's just a natural step and the natural evolution as to what data storage could be, because centralized data storage, as quote unquote good, as many people view it as of right now, there are some drawbacks. Like, for instance, typically it's controlled by a single entity, which I don't know if people really like that, but personally speaking, I don't know about that. Not to mention as well, if you take a look at centralized data storage, usually it just gives off this vibe where, let's say, there's these multiple single points of failures, and sometimes people don't really like the presumption of that. Now, what is a way to eliminate that type of nonsense, at least in my opinion, through decentralization? Even despite that, people may think, okay, Jasmy's trying to achieve this amazing goal, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it can do that in the next 6 months to maybe, 10 months from right now. But in my opinion, even though it can't do that, well, some people may be shocked when I say this, but I actually think that's true. Large enterprise adoption when it comes to Jasmy, or should I say large scale enterprise adoption, it's not going to happen in the next 6 months to, let's say, 10 months, because that type of stuff takes years. But it doesn't really matter anyways, because usually in the world of cryptocurrencies, people pay attention to the narrative. They pay attention to what something could be as opposed to what it already is. If people cared so much about adoption, then something like Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, something like Solana wouldn't really pop off, in my opinion at least. Because if, let's say, we remove like the Dogecoin and Shiba Inu example, because after all, they're meme coins, let's say we use Solana. Solana doesn't have good adoption, in my opinion. It has good perceived adoption. Many people think that it could do well in the future, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the adoption for it is A+, because I don't think it is. It's primarily known for having meme coins on its ecosystem. Now, granted, am I saying that meme coins are caca? No, because I'm bullish on some meme coins and also even some Solana-based meme coins. But I don't think that constitutes as good adoption. When I take a look at something like Solana, again, it's massive for what it is. It's a very amazing layer 1 blockchain, but it doesn't necessarily mean that the adoption is good. But even still, despite that, it's done very well. And I think it's going to boil down to the fact that, or should I say it has boiled down to the fact that it's because people think that, it can have good adoption in the future, which is why they believe in it. And I think the same thing could very well happen to Jasmy. Now, granted, Jasmy has had somewhat of a price pullback, but in my opinion, there's better days ahead. Ever since I started talking about Jasmy, it's done absolutely fantastic. And this is a verifiable fact. Take a look when I talked about Jasmy back in early 2023. Yeah, oftentimes people were saying, it's a meme coin, it's trash, why even bother with this? At one point, they were even saying Pepe was a better pick. Now, arguably, that could have been the case because Pepe did do very well. But even still, despite that, as the old saying goes, every dog will have its day. Jasmy eventually had a good time. And as of right now, even despite the price pullback, I'm still up hypothetically by a lot more than what I originally had in Jasmy. And I still haven't sold anything because I think that this bull run could be very special. Now, why is that? It's because there are so many bullish factors that are present currently that weren't really there back in 2021. Like, for instance, you take a look at how the amount of institutional investors and the amount of enterprise adoption as of right now just through the roof. You take a look at the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, not to mention, as of right now, there's over 600 million crypto owners, according to Crypto.com research, which is more than ever before in history. So that's insane. Not to mention as well, Charles Hoskinson does predict that Bitcoin could reach anywhere between $250,000 all the way up to $500,000 in the next 1 or 2 years, based on a video that he was a part of back in November of 2024. So if you think about that, this burn could be something special. Now, it's a waiting game, I get that, but I've waited this long anyways. I'm just going to stick this one through, especially when it comes to allegedly what many people call the Bitcoin of Japan, which hypothetically Jasmy is that. Now, does this necessarily mean that Jasmy is a Bitcoin version, but in Japan? I don't think so. I think what that necessarily means is that Jasmy is viewed as a very highly regarded project because, after all, it is the first ever legally compliant cryptocurrency in the country of Japan. So many people call it that. You know, it's like the nickname, Bitcoin of Japan. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but I think that, you know what, the name is cool, or should I say the nickname? So I'll stick by that. You know, I think it's pretty awesome. And I think that, if anything, indicates the forward-thinking mindset that Jasmy has, because it's not like they necessarily had to do this. Like, many projects out there aren't legally compliant in Japan, for instance, right? Who knows, maybe allegedly, I don't know. But still, some of them still do very well. So it's not like this is super necessary, hashtag Jorge Masvidal. But again, Jasmy took this extra added step. They just said, yeah, nah, we're not going to be like that. We're going to be something special. But why would they not do that? When you have a team that consists of many individuals who've had many years of work experience in places like Sony and KPMG, which, by the way, is one of the big four accounting firms, yeah, this is going to be a project that's going to be fantastic. And I think Jasmy also has this narrative of good perceived leadership. And this is going to matter because I know people, personally speaking, who acquired XRP just solely because Brad Garlinghouse is quite essentially leading the ship of Ripple. That's pretty much it. You know, as crazy as that may sound, that does happen in some cases, and also even in many cases which I've seen online, you know, not just in real life. But again, I've seen some people who acquire XRP not because of its fundamentals, not because they think it's going to be massive, just because they say that, hey, Brad Garlinghouse is this real deal individual. Other projects out there, they're being ran by random nonsense people who we don't know their identity and stuff like that. And that's why they latch into XRP, which is kind of like wild to see in some cases, but that does happen. Now, when it comes to Jasmy, I would argue that the team has a better experience than Brad Garlinghouse. Now, why do I say that? Because again, they have this amazing work experience. Maybe they don't really do like interviews in English and all this type of stuff. So maybe I think people aren't really aware of that leadership, but you know what? This is very amazing. At least on paper, the resume is absolutely fantastic, and I think arguably better than Brad Garlinghouse. I think the reason why Brad Garlinghouse gets a lot of attention is because, of course, he can speak English, and he goes on these interviews and whatnot. So, of course, many people know about him. But imagine if the Jasmy team really was able to communicate well. Like, let's say Japan, or should I say Japanese, was like the language of the world or something like that. Then I think a lot more people would understand, like, wow, just how special Jasmy is. Personally, I can't speak Japanese, but I've looked into this type of stuff. So this is why I know. But the average individual may not know, but this is why I just want to say it. But even besides that, Jasmy going to the price of $1, considering current circulating supply, market cap would be around $50 billion. So it's not that bad, right? Especially seeing something like BNB reaching over 100 billion, Ethereum reaching over 550 billion, Dogecoin reaching over 80 billion. This kind of seems like peanuts, especially when a bull run could hypothetically look this amazing. Jasmy, by the way, going to the price of $1 is now around a 28x from here. So it's not going to be the best, but at one point, $1 seemed impossible. So even despite the price pullback, I like what I'm seeing here. And again, $1 for Jasmy during this burn wouldn't surprise me whatsoever, because I think that the market that it's focused on is on the rise. And I think that Jasmy is going to go along with the ride. After all, the data storage market is predicted to be worth nearly $800 billion by 2030, according to Fortune Business Insights. This could be something special, but it's just a matter of time, in my opinion, which is why I'm staying patient and not giving up. And make sure to subscribe if you gain value from this video. I'd greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.